All right, welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're taking what is usually some pretty dry UK corporate law and turning it into a high-energy, crystal-clear roadmap for your ACCA exams. We're going to track exactly how power flows through a company when it's absolutely thriving, and then what happens to all that power and all the money when the whole thing comes crashing down into insolvency.
So, let's kick this off by asking the most fundamental question of corporate law. When the doors finally open and a business officially incorporates, who is actually pulling the strings? Is it the directors who make the daily operational decisions, or does the true power sit somewhere else entirely? Now, this is a classic exam trap, guys. You cannot confuse the day-to-day management of a business with ultimate constitutional control.
Here's our roadmap for today. 1. Members' rights and powers. 2. Ordinary versus special resolutions. 3. Insolvency and winding up. And 4. The final order of payment. Let's get right into it.
Okay, Section 1. Members' rights and powers. Essentially, the bosses.
Picture the company in its prime. It's healthy, it's profitable, and the members, meaning the shareholders, wield the absolute ultimate authority. While a director might be the one deciding what color to paint the corporate office or, who supplies the coffee, it's the members who literally hold the keys to the castle. They have the exclusive statutory power to appoint or fire the board of directors, so if the board goes rogue, the members can just boot them out. They also hold the power to appoint or remove the auditors, keeping financial oversight firmly in their own corner. And crucially, they're the only ones who can sign off on substantial property transactions. Basically, in the eyes of the law, the directors report to them, not the other way around.
Moving right along to Section 2, Ordinary versus Special Resolutions. Now, to actually exercise all of that immense constitutional power, members use formal voting mechanisms, which we call resolutions. And for the exam, you absolutely have to know the difference between the two main types. Just look at the contrast. Both require exactly 14 days' notice to convene the meeting. But the voting threshold, that's where the magic happens. A simple majority of over 50%, an ordinary resolution, handles your routine housekeeping stuff, like firing a director who just isn't performing. But if you want to alter the company's actual DNA, like amending its articles of association, changing its formal legal name, or reducing its share capital, you need a massive 75% supermajority. Those critical, life-altering moves demand a special resolution. Seriously, do yourself a favor and burn this one-line summary into your brain right now. Ordinary is 50%, special is 75%. Written resolutions are for private companies only. It's a classic exam trigger. If you lock this simple equation in, it is going to save you so much precious time when you're trying to untangle a massive scenario question under intense pressure.
And think about that last part for a second. A written resolution is a hugely convenient way to pass a vote without having to go through the hassle of booking a room and holding a formal general meeting. You just get the required percentage of members to sign a piece of paper. But here is the major catch. And examiners love to set this trap. It is exclusively restricted to private companies. So if you're reading an exam scenario and you see some massive public PLC trying to be sneaky and slide a written resolution past you, alarm bells should be ringing. It is legally invalid. Absolutely do not fall for it.
Which brings us to Section 3, Insolvency and Winding Up. The end of the line.
Let's step into our second act, where the company's life ends and power dramatically shifts entirely away from the members and into the hands of outsiders. We've got 3 distinct types of winding up. Members voluntary is super simple. The company is perfectly solvent, everyone is happy, and the directors can safely make a legal declaration of solvency. But check out this major exam twist. A creditor's voluntary wind-up is actually initiated by the members. Wait, why? Because the company is completely broke. The directors can't honestly make that declaration of solvency, so the creditors are forced to step in, take the reins, and oversee the mess to try and salvage whatever they possibly can.
And then you have the nuclear option. When things go terribly, terribly wrong, when communications completely break down, and frustrated creditors are just being ignored by management, the court steps in. They force a compulsory winding up. This is an aggressive court-ordered liquidation typically kicked off by a creditor when the company is fundamentally, legally unable to pay its debts.
So, what exactly proves a company cannot pay its debts? A shocking £750. Yeah, you heard that right. For less than the cost of a halfway decent laptop, a frustrated creditor who is owed at least £750 and is being ignored can serve a formal statutory demand. If that demand goes unmet, they can legally petition the court to just tear the company apart. It is an incredibly low threshold, and it catches a ton of students off guard. Memorize this number.
Once the court brings that hammer down, winding up becomes a very strict two-step game. Step 1 is realization. That's the legal mechanism of taking physical assets, property, inventory, and turning it all into cold, hard cash. Step 2 is distribution, actually handing that cash out to the people standing in line. But listen, the liquidator cannot just hand the cash to whoever shouts the loudest. They have to follow a strict, completely unyielding rulebook.
All right, Section 4, the final order of payment. Who actually gets paid first?
This is the climax of our explainer. The dust has settled, the company's assets are sold off, so who gets the money? Think of this strict 6-step statutory hierarchy like a high-stakes sports leaderboard. Number 1, fixed charge holders. 2, liquidators' fees and expenses. 3, preferential creditors. 4, floating charge holders. 5, unsecured creditors. And sitting all the way at the bottom at 6, the shareholders. You have to memorize this exact sequence because it's a brutal waterfall. If the money totally runs dry at step 4, the folks waiting patiently at steps 5 and 6, they get absolutely nothing. Zero. The well is officially empty. To really grasp the top half of that leaderboard, you need to understand the difference between these charges. A fixed charge is your undisputed champion. It's locked tightly to a specific, easily identifiable asset, like a heavy manufacturing machine or a specific corporate building, and it gets paid out first. The floating charge, on the other hand, just kind of hovers over a shifting class of assets, like a warehouse full of raw inventory that changes every single day. Because it's so flexible, the floating charge is heavily penalized in insolvency. It's forced to wait in fourth place, entirely behind the liquidators and the preferential creditors.
And wedged right there in third place are those preferential creditors. In almost all of your exam scenarios, this is going to be the hardworking employees fighting for their unpaid wages and outstanding pension contributions. But here's the brutal reality. Those wages are capped at a measly £800 per employee. Think about it, that barely covers a few weeks of groceries. And anything an employee is owed above that £800 statutory limit, it loses its preferential shield completely and plummets all the way down the leaderboard to join the massive pool of general unsecured creditors down at step 5.
Which brings us to our ultimate conclusion. The shareholders are dead last. At the absolute bottom of the barrel, in 6th place, sit the members. Now think back to the start of this explainer. These are the exact same people who used to hold all the cards. They could fire the directors, they controlled the auditors, they signed off on the major property deals. But in insolvency, they are pushed to the absolute back of the line. And that is the golden rule of corporate law. With the reward of ownership comes the ultimate financial risk. If you keep these power dynamics, the precise voting percentages for resolutions, and this brutal statutory hierarchy for winding up fresh in your mind, you are absolutely going to crush the corporate law section of your exam. But honestly, it leaves you with the real-world question, doesn't it? The next time you think about buying shares in a company, knowing you are dead last in line to get a single penny if things go south, are you absolutely sure it's worth the risk? Thanks for learning with us. Catch you on the next explainer.